Hey, folks, welcome to the pre-show. Just getting set up. Make sure our sound's all on. Make sure we're ready at 3 minutes after to go live on the radio station. So welcome, everyone. Glad that you're here. And hope you're going to enjoy this show. It's going to be a little different. And it started out as something completely different than what it ended up as. So hopefully we'll hit that tonight. Somebody said to me, it was Sarah Youssef, said in a message, she says, wow, she said, spectrophilia. So don't hear much about that. And I said, we're going to hit that. So we're going to hit it. You see what I did there? Play on words. So everyone, welcome to the program. And we'll get rolling here on the radio station over at odysseyradio.com. at 3 minutes after the top of the hour, just under 2 minutes from now. So, how's everybody's day? I've been staring at my computer doing graphics all day long, sitting like this and working on it. My eyes are just wonky today. So, hope you all had a good couple of days. I know I did. So, what do we got? We got 901, 41, 42, 43. So, got a minute and 20 seconds. We go live on the radio. Happy Friday, by the way, everybody. We haven't done anything with the chat yet. That will hopefully over the weekend, I'll have that all worked out. So I'll have a great brand spanking new, really cool interactive chat room up for Monday's show. Less than a minute, we go live. I don't know why I've got that song in my head. Father Abraham had many sons had Father Abraham. Weird. Hey, Randall Flagg, good to see you over there in the chat room. When I'm a ghost, I'd hit that. There it is. So we are almost ready to roll. Let's see. We got about 20 seconds and we go live over on the air. So I'm going to go dark. So you all sit tight. We're going to go dark until the show goes live. So everybody, stay.
The Intrepid radio program with Scotty Roberts. Intelligent talk.
Happy Friday, everyone. Welcome to the podcast, the broadcast. Welcome to Intrepid Radio, folks. Hope you had a great day today. It's Friday, the end of the week for almost everybody. But as I've said before, I work for myself, so I'm always here. And so Saturday, Sunday is just like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, depending on what we have planned. I have my daughters coming up to visit, my older daughters, on Monday. So we're going to spend a couple of days doing nothing, hanging with them. And so you can listen to this show, by the way, over on odysseyradio.com in its audio-only format, because it's radio. And you can watch the show in its simulcast over on my Patreon. Just go to patreon.com/Scotty Roberts, and you'll get to the show. Got to scroll down and find it. As I was saying in the pre-show, we're going to be working on the chat room, hopefully over the weekend. The chat here in Patreon is okay, but you got to keep refreshing and stuff like that. It's really a comment board, not a chat board. So we're going to tie in a pretty cool chat board, very interactive. And so that will revolutionize our chatting capabilities here on the Patreon show. And so, everybody, I hope you're enjoying the show. Hope you're enjoying what we're doing here, where it's going, how we're doing things. We're just in that growing stage. Got to redo the growing stage. to get back up, get our numbers back up, and get people to know that we are here and you can come in and join the show 3 times a week. And there's also going to be a lot of extras here on the channel as well. So if you are already a member, thank you. If you're a patron over here on my Patreon, and spread the word. If you like the show, let people know they can come over. And it's basically, the basic is the cost of a cup of coffee per month. And you get all these shows and all the interactivity that goes on here. And let's see, I'm trying to think if there's anything else that I've got in mind that I wanted to announce to you all prior. And I can't think of anything in particular. And if it comes to me, as my stream of consciousness tends to do to me, we'll hit something during the show, maybe even mid-sentence. I'll go, oh, squirrel, I remember that thing. So I'm going to do one thing, which I always used to do. Where did they go? It's right here. I'm looking for my, there they are. My kind of wonky little set of affirmators. And this is 50 affirmation cards to help you help yourself without the self-help nonsense. So let's see. Let's pull this out. It's a set of cards that Rainey got for me a while back. And I call them my bunny rabbit riding a unicorn jumping the rainbow deck. And it's a little tongue-in-cheek, but they also deal with some actually pretty decent issues. So in a very lighthearted way. So let's see what our affirmator is for today. You know what? We can make it for the weekend because it's Friday. But I'm going to shuffle this deck up. And maybe we'll do some tarot readings sometime over the weekend on this show. So here on the Patreon. So if you want to join for that, watch the announcements out there for it. And we'll do tarot readings for people who are here in the chat room. All right, I'm going to cut this deck. Boom. And let's draw the first card off the top. Wham. Okay, here it is. Your affirmator for today, and I need my readers, is spontaneity. Spontaneity. Do you like... I'm going to turn my light because I can't see anything. Whoa, look at that. Look what that does. Do you like spontaneous adventures of the highest caliber? The only acceptable answer to this question is yes, I do. So buckle up. Charlie, buckle up, Charlie. That's what the card says. You're about to take a wild ride through the unexplored, unconventional, and underrated. You're about to learn that yes is a magic word. And it's a magic word with the power to unlock new dimensions in space-time and after-hours hangouts. Yes will lead you to experiences you didn't think were possible. And it'll teach you that lifelong friendships are sometimes lurking just behind a karaoke singer's mullet. There's a pretty good chance your name is not Charlie. They put in the asterisk at the bottom, way down there in the small print. So this is a bonus card, it says. I wonder why that's a bonus card. But there it is, spontaneity. Be spontaneous. Say yes to more things. That's a good way to open up the doors, it said on here, to adventure, excitement, maybe sometimes trouble. So you got to be careful with that. But say yes to more things. That kind of goes hand in hand with the 20 years from now, you'll regret more of the things you didn't do than the things you did do. And so do more, say more, experience more, and see where it takes you. I think that's a phenomenal affirmator for today. I got to turn that light all the way back over there. There we go. And by the way, I've got a serious announcement to make. The only reason I'm announcing this at all or talking about it is because he did, my friend John. If you are a friend of John Ward's over on Facebook or social media of any kind, you heard him say today and he's got a picture of himself in a hospital bed that he just went through his first um, uh, uh, cardio. I was going to say his. Oh, good grief! Why am I spacing on the word? Too many things in my brain for cancer. His chemo treatment, and I didn't even know he had that going on. Last I talked to him a few times over the last couple of months, he was mentioning some hospital stuff, maybe some nerve damage, stuff that he was having checked into. But now we all learned today, and I don't know why he didn't tell me, but up but apparently John is going through some cancer treatments right now. I don't know what for. I don't know the details, but I would like for you, my John Ward, my closest friend in the world, I would like for you to remember him in your thoughts, your prayers, your energies, your heart, and hopefully everything will go just fine for him. I'll have a conversation with him sometime in the next couple of days and find out a little more detail on what he wants said and not said. But since he announced that much of it, I thought it was safe to say something about it. And so that's a little troubling when you hear that from anybody. Now, we recently had our friend Ken Ballos who went through chemo, and it totally eradicated the cancer that he had. He had a couple of big masses on his lungs, gone. And so they're still working on his voice because he had lost his voice, but it's getting stronger and better. And so I know it can be done. I know remission is a tricky thing when cancer goes into remission. It can find its way back. They usually say if you last 6 or 7 years in remission without any recurrence, that is a pretty good sign that you've wiped it out. So let's see what's going on with John. Yeah, keep him in your mind. Uh, Not cool that we're not close by each other. And he's over in Sweden. He's getting his treatments over in Sweden, where they have a small farmstead when they're not on their site out in Egypt. So there's that. So I'm going to leave that with you, and do with that what you will. It's a bit shocking and disheartening when somebody very close to you has that going on. I've seen it before, but I don't like this at all. So um, your best wishes out to John Ward, and we'll leave it at that. So tonight, talking about something a little strange. It actually started out as a pretty average topic. Not average. How would I say that? It started off as a topic that, for me, was going to be, Fridays are usually ghost days, as I call them, and because we do some paranormal stuff on Fridays. But I had in the back of my head something about, what about ghosts and sex? We hear a lot of weird stuff going on with people these days. And I thought I'd look into that. But then I started seeing some pretty good material that I thought would be worth covering on just sex and couples and our sexuality. And I called up such wonderful articles as How Often Do Couples Have Sex? Ever ask yourself that question? At times, I'm like, "Well, how come I don't get sex enough?" And Rainey's like, "Well, you had it this year once already. Aren't you good with that?" And that's a joke, by the way. And because, the older you get, things don't always work the same. It's a different thing. It's maybe not as spontaneous, it's more planned. And there's so many other activities going on, so many kids around all the time. And so, how often do you have sex? I'm not asking you to tell me, I'm asking you to ask yourself. And people tend to have sex less frequently as they age. And most people today are having sex less frequently than in previous decades, particularly millennials and Gen Z. And so when it comes to sexual intimacy, quality is more important than quantity. I've never quite liked that. I like the quantity thing, but I'm pretty sure that the quantity also needs to have quality, and so I'm okay with quality too. So I've got that I was looking into. Then I was looking into the primary sexual concerns of most people out there. Most common sexual concerns don't involve sexual orientation or identity at all. It's not all the crap that you hear out there that's going on. And many concerns present as sexual, but are really about self esteem, communication skills, self acceptance. Most sexual concerns can be successfully addressed by any good therapist who's comfortable with sexuality. She can go out there and get all kinds of help. It's not like you know, Joe down at the bar. Well, just take her and throw her over the table, and bing bang boom. That's not good sexual therapy, by the way. So if someone can't stand their mate's behavior, sexual difficulties are typically not far behind. So America's culture wars often focus on sexuality, but most people's sexual concerns are far more pedestrian than that. But we're also going to talk about something kind of weird tonight, too, when it comes to sexuality and see if there's any viability to it. So, I also found some stuff on the primary sexual concerns of most people. Most common sexual concerns don't involve sexual orientation or identity at all. And um, it's really about all the underlying issues. I found something on sex and the paranormal. Now, this is what piqued my interest. I wanted to find out more about spectrophilia. Now, have you ever heard about spectrophilia? Do you even know what that means? Spectrophilia? It's sexual attraction to ghosts. And I've got a definition here. This is just a Wikipedia definition. Spectrophilia is sexual attraction to either ghosts or sexual arousal from images in mirrors. Would it be your own image? Would it be someone else's image? Would it be an image that's not there, like scrying in a mirror? And it's as well as the alleged phenomena of sexual encounters between ghosts and humans. Do those really exist? I know in the news lately, paranormal news, I think it was on the news, I heard this too. Several months ago, maybe it was over a year ago, some woman said that she was having sex on a regular basis with a ghost and that she decided she wanted to marry the ghost. Now, if you're a paranormal investigator like I am, that kind of communication seems really detailed and really hard. Pardon the pun. Um, we're lucky if we get snippets of voices talking to us or snippets in little pictures where you can catch a mist or an orb or something of that nature. Having sex with a ghost? How do you suppose that works? Is it all in the imagination that this woman imagined she was having sex with the ghost? But can you have sexual encounters between ghosts and humans? Spectrophilia itself, if you break down that word, philia is the love of something, and spectro, it's like what's some of the other words that you can think of that have philia? Pedophilia, which is a big negative. You've got I was thinking of necrophilia. That's the word, necrophilia, love of the dead, in a weird way. And so spectrophilia is a fetish that's classified as a paraphilia, in which one is attracted to ghosts or spirits. And spectrophiliacs fantasize about ghosts. They often imagine themselves in scenarios involving sexual events between themselves and others and spirits, like group sex with ghosts. That sounds kind of weird to me. Mostly because ghosts seem so they're incorporeal. There's no physical touch to them. You see mistiness. You see things caught in photos. How do you have sex with a ghost? How can you have group sex with a ghost like these spectrophiliacs? Um, it's also used to refer to purported incidents of sexual interactions between humans and ghosts or spirits. So it's stories of that people tell of having their sexual encounters with ghosts. Have you heard of anyone? Have you heard a story firsthand from somebody that talks about having ghost with sex? I'm sorry, sex with ghosts. Have you ever heard of such a thing? And if you have, is it somebody you know? Is it you? I remember doing a radio show with Rocky Stucci a few years back, and we did ADHD radio. We called it. That was not the name of it. It was just the way we acted. ADHD radio was for us, oh, squirrel. We could be distracted and we went all over the place. Our topics went everywhere. And I was talking about some serious topic. I don't remember what it was, maybe politics. And I was deep into it. And Rocky says, "Yo, cannoli," which is what he calls me. He says, "Something just struck my mind. You ever had sex with a ghost?" And I was like, "What?" He said, "Would sex with a ghost?" He says, "Would sex with a ghost be adulterous? Would it be having an affair if you're having sex with a ghost?" And I said, "Well, that's an interesting topic. Would it be because they're not a living person? Would sex with a ghost be cold? Who knows? I don't. So if you know anybody, or if you're someone who has experienced this, I think you ought to let me know so we can talk about this a little more from somebody who is in the know about this stuff. Maybe I got to go look somebody up who's in the know about this. But according to research, there's accounts of paranormal encounters with ghosts and spirits that frequently include sexual encounters, which are often described as being non-consensual or unpleasant. You've heard the stories all the time, especially from women who say, "I have felt like a man has been touching me, touching my breast, touching my genitals, and things like this in my sleep, and I can't move. I'm awake. I'm sorry, in bed, not asleep." And you hear accounts of this kind of thing all the time, and it's non-consensual. It's like ghostly rape. Now, many traditional ghost stories and legends include some element of seduction or temptation. And stories that feature female ghosts who lure men to their deaths are especially common, such as the Latin American legend of La Lorna, La Llorona, 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 La Llorona. And in Western folklore, the succubus and the incubus parallel the modern phenomena of spectrophilia. Now, of course, succubus and incubus are demonic. It's entities as opposed to ghosts. And succubus being female, incubus being male. Or is it the other way around? Can't remember. And so that's a totally different thing, I think. And if you're dealing with spirit entities, do they have more capability of taking on corporeal form, physical form, than a ghost, say, of somebody who's gone on and moved on? So a succubus is a demon or an evil spirit who takes on a female form. There it is, your succubus. And to seduce men and drain them of semen or energy. I knew a few women like that in my day. Definite succubuses. And the counterpart of the succubus is the incubus. And the incubus is a demon that's said to take on a male human form. And the incubus, much like the succubus, is said to seduce women into sex with the objective of impregnating them. The mare, M-A-R-E, is another example from European folklore. And the mare is a malicious entity in Germanic and Slavic folklore that rides on people's chests while they sleep, bringing on nightmares. It's kind of a form of that. Now, the whole idea of the demonic impregnating or attempting to impregnate women, there's a lot of mythology around that. There's some theology around that as well. In Roman Catholic theology, I know it is said that the demonic has, for the beginning of time, tried to recreate humanity, interbreed with humanity to create its own offspring. But it's something that, according to some of the bishops I've talked to about this, they say God keeps them on a pretty short leash and doesn't allow that. But you also have your stories of alien abduction, which some people link to the demonic. What is one of the great big mythology, how's that for describing something? One of the big mythologies around alien abduction is alien abduction for the purpose of impregnation. Now, is that synonymous with demonic, or incubus seducing women, or succubus seducing men? That's an interesting topic that needs a lot more research on my part to know about. I'm giving you kind of light here, but all these accounts have been linked to the documented phenomenon of sleep paralysis, in which individuals experience hallucinations, which often involve spectral figures. Now, is that the explanation for all of it? It's sleep paralysis, it's spectral figures in the imagination. The prevalence of sexual elements in these hallucinations is theorized to be due to repressed sexual frustration or anxiety. Maybe that goes back to the beginning where you say, are you getting enough sex? Are you repressed? Do you have sexual frustration or anxiety? Body type anxiety, things like that. Could those be things that... Now, I'm not sexually repressed. I'm certainly not anxious about him. I'm a little frustrated that it's not quite as often as I'd like, but I go with the flow. I understand where my wife is at. My wife, she's 43. She's like, I'm so busy. I'm so tired. I'm so exhausted. I got autoimmune problems. I got Hashimoto's. I got all this stuff with my thyroid. Sex is the last thing on my list. That doesn't mean it doesn't happen. It means it's not like it was 20 years ago. Like I've said before, kitchen table, living room floor, the folding chair in the backyard, the bathroom vanity, wherever you could find a spot. And now that we have 3 kids and they're keeping us all very occupied, it's not as necessary, at least not for reproduction, but it sure can be frustrating when you don't get it as often as you like. It's just typical. My wife loves me. I love my wife. I love her body. She loves my body, I think. What's left of it. But all of that to say, there are things that are blocks in relationships, which was part of one of the other topics I was looking at for tonight. So sexual frustration, they say, though, can be the cause of this sleep paralysis, which brings on these imagined encounters with spirit beings or aliens even. Folklorist David Hufford estimated that approximately 15% of the population had experienced the phenomenon at least twice in their lives. Now, I can't say I've ever experienced that, so I'm not in the 15%. What's 15%? There's a population of 300 million people in America. Now, not all of those are adults of consenting age. So let's say you got half of that. 150 million. What's 15% of 100 million? 150 million. Well, 15 million is 10%, I think. Blink, blink. You get it. Do the math. That's a lot of people that say they've experienced it at least once or twice. Now, despite the lack of scientific evidence for the phenomenon of spectrophilia, it's become a frequently talked about subject amongst ghost hunters, paranormal investigators, including Ghost Adventures, The Travel Channel. The Travel Channel shows Ghostly Lovers, which I have never seen. I don't even know if it's even an active show anymore. Where was it? It was in 2012. Ghostly Lovers on the Travel Channel. Online forums also contributed to the belief in sexual encounters with ghosts, as well as the idea that they were not necessarily harmful. I would think sex with a ghost might be harmful, just where it puts you. Now, there's going to be some people that are like, no, it's perfectly fine. It's totally okay. I don't know. I think it's weird. That's my opinion. Don't be offended. Don't hate me. But many stories about romance between humans and ghosts, especially men and female ghosts, appear in the book Strange Tales from a Chinese Studio by Pu Songling. And so it's called, I got this word up here. I didn't even see this before. Liu Zai Zairi. Liu Zai, 2 words, sometimes shortened to Liu Zai, known in English as Strange Tales from Chinese Studio, Strange Stories from Chinese Studio, or Strange Tales from Makedu Studio. It's a collection of classical Chinese stories that I'm now going to have to read by the Qing Dynasty, Qing Dynasty, writer Pu Songling. So that's interesting. Now I got to go look that stuff up because I want to read that and find out. Now, of course, there's been lots of films made about, well, spectrophilia. One of the more recent ones, and it's even an old film now by current day standards, Ghost, with Patrick Swayze and Demi Moore. Ghostbusters, where, of course, the ghost is undoing his pants. The Entity. That's an older movie. I think that came out in the late 70s, the early 80s, but it's from a book and a real life story about the woman that was constantly being attacked. There were television shows. The Star Trek The Next Generation had a show in season 7. You had, by the way, Ghost came out in 1990. How's that for making you feel old? 1990 was 33 years ago. There's all kinds of them. One of my favorites, by the way, is an old classic film with Rex. What the heck is his name? I've got both their names in my mind. Rex Harrison and the female star in that old film from the 40s, The Ghost and Mrs. Muir, which was made into a kind of a sitcom TV show back in the 70s with Hope Lang in the part. Gene Tierney, I think, was with Rex Harrison in The Ghost and Mrs. Muir. Black and white film, a beautiful film. I love it. It's a classic. If you have not watched that, watch that. Go get it and watch it. Find it online and watch it. Very good film, and it's a classic. And so all kinds of stories like that are out there. All kinds of movies, all kinds of pop culture is out there. Randall Flagg says maybe the woman from room 217 or 237 before she shows herself to be old. Yeah, there's that. What's that? What was that? The Shining? Wasn't there a scene like that? Maybe that's what the wet dream is. Maybe, Randall, maybe. One of the scary movies spoofing The Haunting. I haven't seen that. A scary movie doesn't, I have no pull to it. But that doesn't mean it's not good. So these are things you can look at, some of the pop cultural aspects of this to see what's going on with spectrophilia. There is also, I have some interesting stuff here that I wanted to look at. Spectrophilia and the sexual attraction to ghosts. Ooh, what's that all about, you may ask? Well, let's take a look. Sometimes um, spectrophilia is something that people experience in this sexual attraction to ghosts. And that's just the technical word for it. It can also include the supposed phenomenon of sexual encounters with ghosts and the living. And these alleged encounters obviously can't be verified. And we have to meet them when you hear these stories with a certain level of skepticism, questioning, and this. That's about the only way you can handle it because there's no way to verify it, qualify it, or put it under rigorous study. Okay, ma'am, you and your ghost can go at it now. We're going to watch from the other side of the glass in the lab. So the alleged encounters obviously can't be verified. They have to be met with a certain level of skepticism and doubt. But who can say that it's real or not real when it comes to somebody else's experience? You know what I usually do, and this is probably a good general rule to follow when you are skeptical of somebody's story, especially in the paranormal. Paranormal stories are a dime a dozen. Ghost stories are a dime a dozen. People's encounters are a dime a dozen. But what I like to look to is the credibility of the individual. Is the person a credible person to begin with? Or are they somebody who is given to flights of fancy and all of that? So when I tell some of my ghost stories, my visions and stuff like that, I say, look, I try to make it very clear. I don't normally have this kind of stuff happen to me, but I try to maintain a certain modicum of credibility by saying, look, I'm a skeptic as well. I'm a normal guy. I'm pragmatic. But who can say what's real to someone else? Many people have claimed these kinds of encounters, and artists of all kind have created art to explore the concept, whether it be paintings and drawings or music or The Lady of the Lake was when it not I'm trying to think of it. It's by this just popped into my head. That's why I can't remember. I'm not remembering a lot of things tonight. How about that? My mind must be tired. But the group, can't think of the name. I used to play it. I got whacked by YouTube for playing it on my shows a couple of years ago, so I stopped. I'll come up with it one of these days and we'll play it. Anyway, and we already talked about pop culture and movies and television and so on. So, and by the way, let me plug somebody's podcast. If you have not heard Amy Bruni's Haunted Road, go look it up. I found it on podcasts. It's on Apple Podcasts. It's anywhere you can find podcasts and download them. It's there's no cost. And so I went and I listened to it. She tells Amy Bruni, you remember her from Ghost Hunters, and now, of course, for 7 seasons, going into their 8th, I believe, of Kindred Spirits with Adam Berry. And she does her show, a podcast, usually an hour-long show. And I listen to them while I work. And sometimes I miss a bunch of them. And then I'm like, yes, I got a whole bunch of these stacked up to listen to. And she does some great ghost stories, and backed up by paranormal investigation and interviewing usually the people that are involved in the sites where you find these things. But go look it up. Haunted Road by Amy Bruni. It's a podcast. There's no video. It's just audio. And you'll really enjoy it. But many legends and ghost stories also include an act of seduction. And there's a lot of paranormal literature, vampires being the obvious example. The whole vampiric thing was seduction. It's an obvious example, and they have attraction between humans and the undead as a primary theme. In many instances, the encounter is non-consensual, and it's very negative. There's instances like the legend of La. There's too many la in that name. Again, La Llorona, where female ghosts lure men to their deaths. And in such succubus encounters, an evil spirit takes female form and seduces and drains men of their energy. And an incubus is the male counterpart to a succubus, where an evil spirit takes male form and seduces women with the goal of impregnating them, a mare in European folklore. Another example. And so the theme is often explored in pop cultural films, which we've mentioned. And despite there not being any solid evidence for the phenomena, many people throughout the centuries have claimed to have had an encounter with a ghost. And it's been theorized that hallucinations, encounters of this type, are due to repressed sexual frustrations. And so there is all of that. And so it's interesting to start examining this. I need to find some, who I need to talk to too is Sarah Soderlin, who has probably run into this with people. And I know she's run into some of the alien stories that are when she's dealing with criminal minds. That's part of her job, forensic psychology. And she deals with some of these people. Sorry, I'm looking something up here, so I'm typing and talking at the same time. You've also got this spectrophilia that can go into the whole alien issue. UFOs and aliens and things like that. They call this by a little different name, exophilia. It's kind of loving the alien. Exophilia refers to those individuals who derive sexual pleasure and arousal from extraterrestrial, robotic, supernatural, or otherwise non-human life forms. So we're talking life forms here as opposed to ghosts, I suppose. Although I ought to point out that the only academic reference to exophilia is in Dr. Anil Agrawal's book from 2009, Forensic and Medico-Legal Aspects of Sexual Crimes and Unusual Sexual Practices, which defines exophilia as a fetish for the bizarre and the unusual. This is where I think Sarah Soderlin might know a little bit of something about this. So in many ways, these types of exophilia sexual preferences could be described as totally impractical, as the chances of making love to a ghost or a spirit or an alien or a demigod like me. No, like Hercules or something like that, and or a robot are arguably negligible. Now, of course, if you're a Star Trek fan, you think of Data from The Next Generation. One of the first couple of episodes they ever made, there was something about where they were all struck with some space madness. Hey, Barbie D, I just saw you over in the chat room 6 minutes ago. Some of these people, I'm sorry, one of these episodes, all the people on the ship were being infected by something that put them in kind of a loopy space madness. And it was Denise Crosby playing Tasha Yar, the head of security on the ship. And she grabs Data and asks him, "Are you functional sexually?" And he says, "I am functional in more than 2,041 different." And she cut him off, and she said, "Good enough." And she drags him into her quarters. But of course, also in Star Trek, what do you have? You have the holodeck. If I had a holodeck, I'd never see the light of day. No, I'd have to have my limited time in the holodeck. And those of you not familiar with Star Trek, you know what a holodeck is? The holodeck was where the program would take matter, like they used in the transporter and replicators for food. It would take matter and reconfigure it into three-dimensional interactive holograms. And so, according to the science fiction, 300 years from now, we've developed, look at where we've come in 50 years. 300 years from now, will have developed the technology to be able to interact inside a holographic story. Could you imagine how cool that would be, by the way, as a little ADHD side rail here? Could you imagine having access to a holodeck? Remember Captain Picard on Star Trek? One of his favorite things was to play the fictional character Dixon. I can't remember the character's name, but it was 1930s, kind of Sam Spade type of detective pulp fiction type of stuff. And he would get dressed in the 1930s suit and fedora, set the computer program, and he could walk into the story and interact with the story. How cool would that be if we could actually do that? But of course, the obvious sideline on that, it came up in some of the other Trek series, was the sexual encounters in the holograms, in the holodecks. You could go to certain establishments and pay your money and walk into sexual experience with a program that's already set for you or one of your own or anybody. I want to have sex with, let's see, who would it be? Who was that blonde woman in one of the Star Trek movies? She played Kirk's love interest. Eve something. Anyway, there. Or Angelina Jolie. I want Angelina Jolie when she was 35 in my holodeck, craving me sexually. You could set those up in the fictional science fiction storyline. So I'm just saying, folks, wouldn't that be an interesting thing to have developed and actually work? And of course, the computer had pre-settings where those pre-settings were you couldn't be harmed. You could be shot, but the bullets wouldn't hurt you. You could get into a fight and you wouldn't actually be hurt and that kind of thing. So there's that. So let's see, where are we here? I'm looking for the chat room. Barbie D, you don't know anything about Star Trek. I'm so sad for you. I grew up on Star Trek. Captain Kirk was my hero when I was a little kid, 55 years ago. And so I grew up with it and I love Star Trek. So there you go. That is what it is. And Barbie D, you might have missed at the beginning. I am working on incorporating a new chat room that you can run concurrently with this show. We'll start it next week. It's a very highly interactive chat room that's going to be even better than what we saw in the YouTube chat rooms. So I've been told. I haven't used it yet. I'm just getting it all set up. It's pretty involved. And it interlinks with and speaks with my Patreon. So it's going to be a good way, a good tool for us to have, and it's going to work like the old chat room did. It's a little clunky in here because, we haven't made it work properly yet. Now we're going to make that happen. I found a good way to do it. So, where was I when I was talking to holodecks? I don't even remember what point I was on. I think it was about loving the alien. Oh, yeah. There's all this aliens, demigods, ghosts, spirits, robots. That's where I went into Data, who's an android. All of those things are arguably negligible when you hear those stories. Although the sexual focus is non-human, the shape of the desired form is typically humanoid, but would not include those people who are sexually attracted to statues. Think of Pygmalion. The literary basis for the whimsical musical My Fair Lady, the artist who falls in love with the sculpture of a woman that he made. But statues, dolls, mannequins. I had to talk about mannequins with somebody today. Weird stuff. So I have none of those fetishes, by the way. Just want to let you know, I'm not attracted to mannequins. However, the way the conversation went, and you'll have to pardon my talking about this way. Somebody asked a question, somebody I know pretty well, and online and asked the question about mannequins and, all right, let's let loose. Guys, are any of you sexually stimulated by looking at a female mannequin? And I had to, honestly, I looked at that and I said, guys are visual. So guys can walk by a mannequin and you see breasts protruding inside a shirt. A guy is going to be stimulated by that. Not because it's the mannequin, but because it stimulates what's going on in the brain. And of course, I had to tell the story when I was an assistant manager in the men's suit department there was a department store called Powers, which was part of Donaldson's in Minneapolis years ago, now defunct. They had a big store right downtown Minneapolis, busy intersections, thousands of people walking by, traffic going by. It looked like New York City out the window. And we had a huge window with a display in it. And those displays, you could get in the door to the display and it had its own floor in there, and they would set up Christmas stuff and seasonal stuff, beach stuff, winter stuff, so on. That was back, I worked there in 1980. That's 43 years ago. And it doesn't seem that long ago. It's not like archaic history. It's still modern day history. We had technology. We didn't have cell phones yet, but they had just come out with female mannequins with nipples. And why they came up with this, I think, was just to show how certain clothing would form to a woman who was not wearing a bra or had nipples. Okay? And all the guys liked that. We're like, whoo-hoo, mannequins with nipples. But then the upper management upstairs, the word came down that the display department had to file off all of the nipples. So, could you imagine your job? What'd you do to work today, hon? Oh, I filed all the nipples off of mannequins. Whoop, 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 whoop. So we had to take all the nipples off for displays. Anyway, having said that, online sources claim that the overwhelming majority of exophiles never claim to have had sex with an alien, but are sexually excited and aroused by the thought of doing so. Now, it all depends on what the alien is. What if the alien's a gray, an alien gray? Would you want those big glossy black eyes staring at you? Or are you thinking aliens like Spock or, other female aliens in Star Trek? This is very different. Spock. Oh, I have him right here, by the way. Hey, cheers. So, I was surprised when I started hearing about how many alien fetish sex sites are out there. This is my research, not because I'm looking for them for personal pleasure, but my research. It shows how popular this type of paraphilic and or fetishistic interest is. An online essay on alien sex by Necromagical, is his pen name, notes that, quote, the only official reports of sex between humans and aliens derive from the lore of alien abductions. The first credited abduction sex story came from 1957 in Brazil. Antonio Baus was plowing the fields of his family farm when a UFO showed up. He was taken inside and prepped to meet a fair-headed alien. Interesting, huh? I've heard all kinds of stories, like I've said, about alien abduction, alien impregnation, women claiming that they were made pregnant and the babies were taken from them. So interesting stories from sometimes very credible sources. In January 2011, there was a news report surfaced that a male Chinese farmer called Meng Xiaoguo claimed to have, I always have to do that with the accent, I know, Meng Xiaoguo claimed to have had mid-air sex with an alien for 40 minutes with a levitating alien. Meng said she was 3 meters tall and had 12 fingers and braided leg hair. 3 meters tall. That's roughly, folks, a meter's about 3. Well, that's about roughly 9 feet. Interesting. Stories very recently in the last week. You're talking about the alien whistleblower, the UFO whistleblower. There are people who came out, police footage of a crash of a ship, and people claiming that they saw 10-foot beings. People are, well, why didn't they show their pictures or their videos? They'd have gone viral. You think there's any repression of that kind of material? Anyway, moving on. We only got a few minutes left on the radio. So actually less than 3. So, but the guy passed a lie detector test, this Chinese dude. And he also claimed that the aliens told him that the offspring of the sexual union would appear 60 years after they had sex. That's a long gestation period. Or maybe that's the travel time. I don't know. So, obviously, I struggle with believing a lot of these stories. I'm open to the fact that everything is open. We don't have explanations for everything. We don't know everything. Matter of fact, we know not even the tip of the iceberg in our own sciences. So, I do know that others believe in aliens. I do. I know they regularly visit Earth. I believe that. And there are some people who genuinely believe that they've been abducted by alien life forms, that they've had sex with them, even against their will. So, exophilia should be understood as an abnormal desire for that which is outside Earth. It's characterized by arousal in the presence of aliens or, less directly, representations of aliens. The exophile is rarely apprehended in the very act of satisfying his fetish. Evidently, the reason for this is not the scarcity of exophiles, but the lack of extraterrestrials themselves. And I got to end on that quote, that big long quote from a 2001 book, Extraterrestrial Sex Fetish, by Supervert, he calls himself. So we're about out of here, folks. We got to get out of here for the radio audience. Radio audience, thank you for being here. And join us next time. Stick around, folks, for the Captain's Cabin. And you know what? Radio audience, live long and prosper.
Join us every weeknight at 9 p.m. Central Standard Time, 10 p.m. Eastern. The Intrepid Radio Program, a Scotty Roberts Productions broadcast.
for a really awesome and amazing graphic designer? How about an illustrator or a photographer? This is Rainey Roberts, and I wanted to tell you how you can get my designer, illustrator husband, Scotty Roberts, to work for you on your project. Do you have an awesome self-published book but no cover, or even worse, a cover that really sucks? Do you need a kick-ass logo for your company or some f***ing awesome graphic designs for your ads or website? Then get in touch with my husband for the best f***ing awesome kick-ass design and illustration. He knows his stuff, and he's been at this for more years than I've been alive. Go to ScottAllenRoberts.com. That's Scott with 2 T's, ALANROBERTS.com to take a look at his online portfolio of work, or call 651-468-8115. Now go out and kick some ass with some kick-ass graphic design.
Hire my dad, so he can take me to Disneyland.
Well, hey there, and welcome back to the Captain's Cabin. This is our after show. For those of you who don't know that, this is where we'll spend anywhere from 3 minutes to 2 hours. I think we went almost 3 hours one night, but only one time on a Friday night for the Captain's Cabin. It's just our after show, a little afterglow, a little coming down off the topic a bit, so to speak. And so if you're out there and you want to join, if you want to call in, you can call in. I'm going to give you a link where if you want to call into the show and you want to share your thoughts or talk, it ain't no big shakes, folks. It's easy to do because it feels like nobody's even there when you're doing it. So there's the, you copy that link and go to it and you'll pop up in my StreamYard and I'll see you down there and I'll bring you in. But if we don't have anybody calling in, tonight, we'll probably wrap a little earlier than, well, not than normal. We've been doing, since we started Patreon, since we don't have as many people in the chat room, we don't have as many people trying to call in. And Uncle Dave actually came in once. So there's that. We are still doing Sunday mornings, by the way, live over on YouTube, not on the Patreon. So I could do them on Patreon and we'll just make it a free show. Now that way we can do not part of the package for patrons of the channel. That way everybody can come in and see it, see what it's like over here. But I'm going to wait to do a public show on Patreon until we have a better chat room all set up and working well, like a well-oiled machine. So, what was I going to say? There was something I wanted to bring up. It was probably just more about the show itself tonight. I know that I have for years heard about the whole alien abduction thing, almost more than I've heard about the spectrophilia. I hear about the exophilia, the wanting to have relations with an extraterrestrial being. And now it's very interesting with the advent of this UFO whistleblower who is either one, a lion sack of shit, or two, brainwashed and misled, or three, he is part of the disinformation, misinformation apparatus that's at play out there to draw people's attention away from something else. Maybe he is part of that super covert part of the government. Now, because the guy himself is decorated military. He is very well credentialed and has a lot of people vouching for his honesty as a person and his character. And so it's very interesting when you hear exceptionally wild stories coming from people that are not exceptionally wild in their imaginations, and they're very credible and down to earth, and even character and integrity issues. So that would be interesting to find out. But now we're finding out about this police story where it couldn't be hidden for some reason because it went out on all the police wires. I don't know why it is certain stories can get banned or buried while other stories can uh, make the light of day and go back and forth all over the place. Now, the only story was that the police footage that they've seen, the police footage, cam footage, is showing a UFO crashing beyond the trees in a neighborhood. Now, the obvious skeptic is going to say, well, you can make movies like that and it looks real. Nobody knows if it's real, except there are real people involved, real officers involved that have been qualified and verified. Now, the other aspect of this is, why isn't there any other footage out there from all the people who said that they saw it, all the people that were filming it, all the people that said they saw an alien ship crashed near their backyard and they saw 10-foot alien beings walking into their backyard. And they took pictures of it and films of it, video of it, but none of that exists. Why? Is it because it didn't happen, which is what we're being led to believe? Or is it because those things have been buried? You cannot show that video. And I know of, and I know people who know of, who are big in the UFO community, the alien community, all this research, that have either been threatened or known people who were threatened, even killed. They suspect killed for their involvement in the UFO community. And it's not a secret, but it is a dangerous thing. I'm not that deep into it, so I got not much to worry about. But why do you suppose that there would be a covert organization above the Congress of the United States, meaning the Congress doesn't even know they exist, that would try to attempt to control the release of information about aliens? Why would they want to do that? Is it because it's dangerous to us? Is it because it's good for us? Is it because there would be mass panic? I don't think so much anymore. We've spent the last 50 years pretty much grooming ourselves for, especially in pop culture, for the presence of alien life. What do you think? Do you think it's out there? You think it's real? I'm not you could say I'm a believer because I don't have proof of it, my own proof anyway. But there are credible people I do believe. So amongst them, Whitley Strieber, who wrote the book Communion. You want to read a good book, a creepy and chilling and very, at the same time, cool book. It's uplifting. It's about a real guy. It's a guy you can talk to today. You can go listen to his radio shows. He's an author, published author long before this happened. He claims in 1985 to have been abducted and abducted repeatedly. And he's got his book Communion, and it's got one of those very famous alien gray faces on the front cover. They made a movie out of that book, 15 years ago, with Christopher Walken playing Whitley Strieber, which I think is a horrible miscasting. That movie could have been done so much better. But they tried to make it a fictional story as opposed to the story of Whitley Strieber, even though they used his name and so on. So it's an interesting book if you have not read it. And he's written 3 or 4 more books in a series about his alien abduction experiences. And then his very new age interpretation of why it's being done. So well worth your time, well worth reading if you have time to do that. All right, folks. So we got no callers tonight. It'll come. It'll eventually get back to where it was. We've just got to get ourselves there. Spread the word about the Patreon station and see if we can get more listeners over here. Start promoting this myself a little more, do a little more active marketing and see what we can drum up. And at the same time, I want to thank you for being here. Those of you who have already given to this Patreon channel, thank you very much. That will help us as we grow to do bigger and better things with this program. And I appreciate the fact that you would donate to this effort. And thank you for being here tonight. And we will be back on Sunday morning for sure, but maybe sometime tomorrow we'll try to get back here. I cannot guarantee that there will be a show on Monday night, but we'll be uploading other shows. I'll pre-record something that'll release at the right time. If I'm not going to be here, my daughters are coming in from out of town, and we're going to all get together and go do something throughout the day on Monday. We might be back here in time for the radio show, but we might not be. So if we're not, there it is. So thank you all for being here. Thank you for your time. Thank you for donating to this channel. And thank you for helping get the ball rolling. And so have a happy Friday night. Have a fantastic weekend. And live long and prosper.